Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Raven M. Harris, and I am your host of the Reset with Raven podcast, and I am grateful that you are here. Now, this podcast is all about not suffering in silence. It's all about hearing from people who have been through some things, been through some challenges, and they're sharing with us how they didn't just go through it, they grew through it. And today's guest is just that. Jerry Hall. Now, y'all know I love a defying the odds story. And this episode is filled with that, with hope, with inspiration, and with that, like, don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. This father, this parent, this man loved on his son so hard that despite the challenges, despite what people said was an impossible dream, the son didn't feel that it was impossible. Tune in to hear why. Welcome, Jerry. I'll start with one of the things that like really resonated with me when we first connected. So dreams are so important to me because I really feel like for over 2 decades, I didn't give myself permission to really go after mine. And I recently founded Activate the Dream. So anytime someone's talking about dreams and desires, it really excites me.
Right.
So start by telling us about how dreams have impacted you and your family and the mission that you're on today.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I know I'm now a 57-year-old man. I live in Canada. I know when I was younger, I was incredibly enthusiastic. And I think when I was in my 9, 10, 11 years old, it was easy to dream because you had your entire life ahead of you. And so I always had grandiose ideals that I would go to school and build a career and build a business and have wonderful things happen. And it's one of those things that I found personally in my own life when I started to raise my family, and we had some certain challenges with my family from the get-go, from a health point of view, with our firstborn. A lot of those dreams we pushed them to the side because we basically found ourselves in survival mode. But a wonderful thing happened because of this actual situation in our life and how it's unfolded for us. It's made us bigger dreamers now in our life because of the example that my firstborn was able to set for my wife and I, and for his 3 younger siblings, and also for all the people in our extended family and friends and things like that. It's just been an absolutely incredible journey. And I will tell you that I probably dream bigger now than I ever have before in my life. I know my children do and my wife do. So yeah, dreams to me are the foundation of hope, this opportunity to be able to strive towards something new. Yeah, that was a great question.
I love how you said that you dream bigger now
Yeah,
than you did before. It's as if like adversity and recognizing that even with what you experience, hey, I got through this. I made
exactly.
it through this. The world didn't come to an end. And it's
Right.
like now it's almost like it opened up the floodgates of all of the dreams and things that you're like, oh well, if we can overcome this, oh, we can overcome anything. Like nothing is impossible. So tell us more about your when you mentioned like some health experiences that
Yeah.
you experienced with your firstborn child. Tell us more about what that was for you all.
Okay, great. I'm very fortunate that I married my childhood sweetheart. I was 13 and she was 11 when I met her. And so we dated for a long time and we ended up getting married. And we always had a dream that we would have a big family. We would, almost be like the Brady Bunch, so to speak. And so we always just love having people around us. And when we got married, we were so excited to start a family. And so when my wife got pregnant, shortly into our first pregnancy, my wife found out she was carrying twins. And so that was even more exciting, a little frightening for me, but it was an incredibly exciting period of time. But unfortunately, 27 weeks in, my wife had started experiencing a great deal of challenges. And so she was rushed to the hospital and she had to have an emergency C-section. And so both our children were born at the time. They were both boys. One of them, unfortunately, didn't make it through the first day and he passed away. And our surviving son, Thomas, he was born at 2 pounds, 5 ounces, basically had no blood in his systems. And for the next 10 weeks, everything was completely touch and go in the hospital. One day we were getting encouraging news. The next day it wasn't so encouraging, but the amount of fight in a 2.5-ounce little boy was absolutely amazing. And after 10 weeks, we were able to bring him home from the hospital and start our family. Now, of course, there was concerns along with that. There was other health issues, but my wife and I were able to start this dream of raising a family because we were able to bring him home. But a funny thing happened about 8 to 12 months in. We noticed that he wasn't responding to sounds or that. And so we had a test taken and we found out that he was deaf, in fact, profoundly deaf. And for me as a father, I didn't know anybody deaf. I didn't know what to do in that case there. And I started thinking, of course, 20, 25 years down the road, how is he going to be able to function in society? And so, we got involved with the Deaf Society and the local deaf school, and they started to help us reassure that things would be okay for Thomas. And they started working with him immediately. But between 18 and 24 months, he started exhibiting some other different types of characteristics, things that I guess weren't normal. We didn't know because he was our first child and we really didn't have a measuring rod. But we found out through diagnosis that he was actually autistic as well. And not mildly autistic, but quite autistic, if I can say it that way, because he wouldn't interact so much with other people as he would see things as inanimate objects. So that combined with the deafness as his father, I'm thinking, oh boys, what kind of life is he going to have? And so this whole dream that we had, or I had, of how my future was going to look was pretty much set on its heels. But lo and behold, I married the most incredible woman in the world. She's the strongest lady I've ever met. And she took the bull by the horns. And she understood that this was the so-called cards that we'd been dealt. And it was amazing over the next 3 to 4 years, the programs, because of my wife, we were able to put in place for our son Thomas, that he started to thrive. And the amazing thing about it, and I tell people now, this was back in 1993, before Google, before cell phones, before all these things. So my wife was on the phone every day, making dozens of calls, traveling hundreds, if not thousands of miles on a monthly basis, going to appointments, going to assessments. So it was one of those times in our life where either you bow out or bow up. And my wife left me no choice. We were going to bow up, and she was an incredible inspiration for me. And it's because of these efforts on her part, our son was able to go out there and start thriving at the local deaf school, and also with the people that were helping us with the autism side of things. And to normalize Thomas's life, we went ahead and had 3 more children over the next 7, 8 years. And so Thomas has 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. And as a result of that, our other children are the most incredibly thoughtful kids you could ever meet. Well, they're all in their 20s now, so adults that you could ever meet, because they grew up with this type of situation where they knew people, don't have all the same advantages and the same faculties as other people. And it made them really sensitive to the needs of other people out there.
Bow out or bow up. I gotta write that down. When adversity, hits you, or just not even the unexpected.
Right.
And one of the things you said too, the amount of fight. You described the amount of fight in Thomas,
Yeah.
but the amount of fight in your wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
The resilience, this I'm gonna take this, and I just the love
Yeah.
in overflow and in an abundance
Yeah,
So, like, I'm not gonna let this knock me down. We're gonna make sure our son has the most amazing life and has all the tools, all the resources. Wow. And we're
yeah,
gonna have 3 more kids.
yeah, and it was crazy. And I'll tell you, I'm the youngest of four boys, 4 years between us, and I had an incredibly strong mother as well. Well, you'd have to
Mhm.
with four boys. Um, but I never experienced a maternal instinct like I did with my wife, because with that child, like, that was her. And she was going to do anything. And somebody once said something. They said, Lisa, that's my wife's name, is like a pit bull with a dirty sock. Once she gets a hold of something, she's never letting it go. Meaning, just from a compliment point of view, that I will tell you, if it wasn't for her, there was times where I kind of crawled up in a ball because we had lost one son and I didn't know what I was going to do. And a lot of times I was kind of selfish about my own emotions. And I'm sure my wife felt the same way at times too, but she never showed it. She
Mhm.
basically understood that her responsibility from this day going forward was this child and her children to come. And that's the way she did it. And so she inspires me every day watching how strong of a woman she truly has become, or always was. This just revealed that.
I love that. I love that. And what you said also too, there was no like survival attitude. It was we're gonna thrive and we're gonna
Yes,
make sure we thrive and to have such amazing I'm just thinking about also too the children after Thomas, his siblings,
yes,
what resolve that builds in them to
yeah,
see such a strong family
yeah,
unit as well. And you have another amazing component of the story
yeah.
that really just knocked me off my feet when you said it. That just I was like, wow. And I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'm going to let you tell that part as well. But tell us more about what Thomas has had the resolve to do.
Okay, fantastic. This is my passion now in life. And this story, what I'm about to share with you, is what's now directed me towards what I'm doing now. And I plan to do for the rest of my life. As Thomas got older in his late teens, one of his dreams and goals in life always was to drive a car and buy a car and drive a car and just have that independence. And although we always liked the thought of that, we just knew it wasn't going to happen. All the experts, the teachers, the doctors, they said basically it wasn't going to happen for him. And the reason why is that although Thomas can, from a life skills point of view, get along quite well, he he operates academically at a grade 1, grade 2 level. So he reads one or two word sentences, adding things like 2 plus 2. He has to figure it out manually all the time. So when he said he wanted to get a driver's license and buy a car, it was the first time in our life that my wife and I felt like we were going to fail our child. It was that one thing that we just knew that wouldn't happen. And what was even more painful about the whole situation, he started seeing his younger siblings get driver's licenses. And so it was making him feel even a little bit less about himself, because we always treated him equally. We never labeled him. But now he was seeing his siblings being able to do something, gain a certain level of freedom that he wouldn't be able to do. So it was a kind of a really tough time, and he wasn't having a good time at home either. He was getting very frustrated. He was in his early 20s. And so he was resilient, though. He kept coming back to us and says, I want to get a license. I want to get a license. And, dozens of times on a daily basis. So my wife and I, we were almost positive this wouldn't happen, but we cautiously became somewhat optimistic. And we said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to reach out to as many people as possible, and we're going to see what we can put together for him. Because if the no had to come from somebody, we were hoping that it would come from people who weren't his mother and father. And so what we did is we went on this journey of trying to contact people, and nobody was willing or able to be able to sit down with Thomas and teach him the initial part of getting a driving license, just past the written test. And so it was an amazing journey, but something phenomenal happened. We were calling around and we came across this incredible gentleman who had just immigrated to Canada from Lebanon. He was a doctor over there, and he came over to London, Ontario, our city, to start studying for his PhD in pathology. He caught wind of Thomas's story. He was actually also profoundly deaf, but he's very intelligent and he reads lips. And he caught wind of Thomas's story, and we were able to connect. And we sat down with him and we explained to him Thomas's limitations. We were able to explain to him the other challenges Thomas had with the deafness and the autism. And this incredible individual said he would like to help Thomas do this. And for a few months, they would get together twice weekly at the local library for 3-hour sessions. And they weren't really seeing any results. And our son Thomas wouldn't quit, though. He kept going back. And then an amazing thing happened, that this person who was working with Thomas started identifying Thomas's learning patterns, things that nobody had ever seen before. And by understanding how Thomas learned compared to most people, the results started coming in. And over the next 3 months, Thomas started learning the information and memorizing it and understanding it. And at the end of 5 months, he was scoring always over 75% on the written tests. That was the threshold to pass the exam. So I remember us going in November of 2018. I'm sorry, February of 2018 to the ministry office, and he wrote the test and he passed. I couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe this happened except for Thomas. And this started teaching me something about the whole success process, that just maybe we shouldn't listen to everybody in our circles. Maybe if we have strong conviction and belief and desire inside, that we need to stick with that. We need to believe that. And that's exactly what happened. So Thomas was able to pass the test. He actually scored higher on the test than his 3 other siblings, which was absolutely amazing. So, and when he got this, it was an absolute new life for him, a new lease on life. And for the next 10 months, every night, either my wife or I would get in the passenger seat of one of our cars. Thomas would drive, and we started in parking lots, and he'd get good, and he would just start learning to drive. And the look on his face was just absolutely amazing, because he had climbed a Mount Everest, so to speak, and he was seeing things unfold in his life. And for me to see that was just an absolutely incredible thing. And there's a lot more to the story, but I don't know if you want to interject at this time and ask a couple questions. But
what's coming to my mind is, if you want something bad enough, and I know that sounds so cliche.
Yeah.
I hear you saying unwavering focus.
Yeah.
He wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
Grit. I'm thinking about Angela Duckworth's book. Grit is coming up. Will, determination.
Yeah.
And I also want to bring up how you said maybe you shouldn't listen to other people. And even as loving, caring parents, you said you didn't even believe, right?
No, we didn't. My wife and I, we were really concerned, like how this would define the rest of his life, because one of the things we were very specific about, my wife and I, when Thomas we were raising him, he was a young child, was we'd never label him. We never let him think that he was any less significant or any less exceptional than we looked at our other children. And so he grew up with an incredibly high belief system that if you want something, you could do it. And for the most part, he wants to go to McDonald's tonight, we go to McDonald's. There was nothing big or substantial we had to do. So we didn't believe it. We walked into this. Now, I have strong faith beliefs myself too. And so, we delivered a lot, or sent a lot in email, if you know what I mean. My wife and I prayed a lot over this entire thing. And, just that part of the process, and there's a lot more to the process that continued to happen, but it restored our belief. And like I was saying, that he was starting to restore my belief in ourselves and our capabilities and our abilities to be everything. And so after he got his what's called a G1 in Canada, you have to keep that for 12 months. And then you have to go in a driving test with an instructor. and they evaluate how you do. And if you pass that, then you can get your own a driver's license and drive on your own. And to sort of like make a long story short, we found somebody else who would work with Thomas. Nobody else. We spent months trying to find somebody who would be able to work with Thomas. There weren't any, that could deal with a deaf person or use sign language. And then one of the driving schools called us and they said, we have a gentleman who would like to help out, and this fella met Thomas. He didn't know how to sign, but he felt he could communicate enough information to Thomas to teach him how to drive. And so they went out for 24 different appointments over the course of 4 or 5 months. And we took him to his driving test in November of 2019 or 2020, and he passed the test first time. I'm not embarrassed to say I failed my driving test the first time.
Right. So one of the things that's standing out to me are like, I'm sure people are like itching to know. So do you not have to be able, is there like a percentage of hearing that you have to be able to hear, like if someone blows their horn, or is that based on the
No,
country? How does that work? I don't know I realize
no,
I don't know the law regarding that.
that's a great question because everybody asked us when we told them that. And I said, well, no, there's a lot of professional deaf people, the deaf teachers at my son's school who all have driver's license. And quite honestly, I know when my daughter drives, she's got earbuds in. So she's not hearing anything anyways. Most people have music on or whatever in their car. I will tell you one thing is that if you don't have a particular sense, in my son's case, his hearing, it's not that the other ones are better, but you rely on them more. So he has this incredible peripheral vision because he doesn't hear that when we're driving down the road, even he and I in a car now, if there's a siren coming, he can actually pick that up quicker with his peripheral vision than I can with my hearing. And then he pulls over. So the only difference is that when a deaf person goes through an intersection, every time they go through, if it's a green light for me, I'll just cruise straight through it. For him, he looks left and right every time, not knowing whether or not there's an emergency vehicle or a car that's screaming through the intersection. But no, it's the law is pretty open that way, that if you can pass the test and you can go through the sight test, then you're perfectly fine. So he was able to get his driver's license. He had been saving money. We taught him how to save some money. So he was chucking a couple $100 away a month under his bed in a lockbox. And, after he got his driver's license, 3 years after he started this whole process, he was able to go out and buy a car and got it insured. And at that point there, it was just independent city for him. He just hit the open road. And I will tell you, when somebody manifests a dream and they realize the fruit of all this hard labor, it was the most incredible thing because to this day, there is nothing that he won't try new now. And he's the most excited, inspiring person, for me. And one of the remarkable things that happened to me because of this, it made me personally redefine my entire definition of success.
Tell
What
us
it
what
meant.
that is, yeah. Or I'm curious, what was it before and what is it now?
Well, before it was quite naive. I grew up and I was somewhat athletic. I did well in school and I was a good worker because I had a hardworking father and mother. And so I thought that if you worked hard, you got a good education, you were somewhat competitive, you could become successful. So when I started having success in my life, to me, that definition worked for me. And so it just kind of like reinforced it. So I would tell people all the time that was my definition of success because it worked for me. But a funny thing happened that when Thomas climbed his Mount Everest, my definition no longer was applicable. It wasn't true. And one of the things is I sat down as he went through this process, and when he finished it, I really truly looked at it, and so much that I went on the Google and just hit definition of success, and I just started reading through so many people's different interpretations, and two incredibly amazing things, just popped up when I looked at it. Number one, I realized above everything else that success is structural. It's not personal. And what I mean by that, it's not just the inherent right of a few people. It's not just a few people can become successful. It's structural. There was actual structure to success if it's set up in the right way, because Thomas's whole course of action was based on steps and structure. That's how he was able to get that. So that was the first thing that became overwhelmingly true to me at that point. And the second point is I realized that systems were more important than skills. That if you don't, you know what, you might not be the most talented, you might not be the best at anything, but if you have a good system to follow that other people have used, that overpowers skills all the time. So when I looked at that, I said, okay, there's a structure to success, and it's systematic. So what I did is I wrote a short story about this, about Thomas. It's a 20-minute read. It's about 3,500, 4,000 words. And I laid out all the steps. I tell the story of what he did. And then I laid out all the steps. And for me, I was biased. I thought it was great. And it was a story about my son, and my family loved it. My kids loved it. And we shared it a little bit locally. But then I put it online and people started sharing it. And then I put it up so people could purchase it. It's just a few dollars just to cover the cost, stuff like that. But and I found out, looking at the numbers as they came in, the story's now sold and read worldwide. And I'm hearing from people all the time how Thomas's story is inspiring people, because people are starting to say, for the longest time, I just didn't think someone like me could become successful. I didn't think people who come from where I come from had the chance of becoming successful. But a deaf autistic person with the academic level of a grade 1, 2-year-old, to be able to go out and accomplish a goal that no one, and I mean no one, felt possible, not even his parents. Most of us have our parents on our, rooting for us when the system's not working. But Thomas didn't even have that. So it proved to me, first and foremost, that if you have a burning desire and you want something so bad in your life, you just got to close your ears, which Thomas did. It's permanently. You just go for it. And it's amazing that if you work hard, how stuff will manifest and the right people will come into your life and the path will start to open up. I'm not saying this thing was just bang, 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 bang. This was a 3.5, 4-year process. But it just worked because he was relentless. He never let up on it, but it was joyful along the way as well for him.
One of the things as you're talking that is like really resonating for me is also too when you said earlier we didn't put labels and we had never, you didn't use this term, but it's like boxed
Right.
in. So the whole idea of I can't, or I'm not supposed to, or I'm unable, like that wasn't even in his psyche.
No. And that's a great question, because I remember when he went to do his driving test, he says, "Why are we going there?" And I said, "Well, you have to sit there with not an instructor, but an evaluator is going to sit beside you." So from his point of view, it means I just got to take this person for a ride and I get my license. He didn't think he even had to pass a test. He was so sure he was going to get this thing. And I was telling a friend, with my other business, I coach a lot of people and I talk to them on an ongoing basis. And this person was beating themselves up so bad. And I just said to them, I said, you know what? If you talk to your closest friends the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have a friend in the world. So many times, we're our own biggest enemy. We're the one who cap us, stop us thinking that we can do things. With Thomas, because we never put those sort of like limitations on him, and he was somewhat closed off from the outside world because of his deafness and his autism. He didn't watch CNN. He didn't know about all the things that were going on in the world. It gave him, I honestly believe, a leg up, because he didn't have to deal with the stuff that we do on a daily basis. But
No outside noise, no outside chatter, naysayers. Yeah.
that was exactly it. And so it took this young 2.5-ounce premature baby born at 6 months, the one I didn't think I would know what to do for, that lo and behold, who knew over 20 years later, he'd become my greatest teacher. And
Mm.
he would reteach me what life's all about and how to pursue goals. And at this stage of my life now, I'm embarking on a new journey. And it was only because of the example he set for me.
Wow. Tell us what's a name of the book and how can people find it?
The name of the story is Thomas's Desire. And on the cover, we have this incredible picture of Thomas standing on a dock with his arms crossed, looking at the sun, like saying, "Bring it to me." It's just absolutely amazing. We took the picture, my wife did, back in 2015 in Northern Ontario at a camp. And you can get the book. You can go to our company website. It's www.newmillsuccess.com. So it's NEWMILLSUCCESS.com. And right on the home page down the right side, you'll see a little thing that says Thomas's Desire. Just click on that. It's $4.99. And I tell people that if you get a copy of it, share it with people. You don't even tell them to go buy it. Just, I want to get this thing in people's hands because I know there's people out there that want to be inspired. I've talked to a lot of educators. My wife's an educator, and other educators that say, I have an autistic kid in my school, in my class, that would love to hear this. So my mission in life now is just to get this into people's hands, share Thomas's story, and then people will call me up and want me to talk about it. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
I love it. I love it. And that is a great segue to a question I had. Jerry, you said that your mission is to educate and inspire people to discover and live the life they are intended to live.
Yes.
Two-part question. How do we start that discovery process? And then the second part is how do we know whether or not we are living the life we are intended to live?
Great question. I one of the things I've told my kids this, and I know some people don't like when people say this, but I told my kids, I said, once you find a job or a career you love, you'll never work another day in their life. And I told my kids this early on in their lives. And I said to each one of them, and I'll tell you, I have 4 kids and they're all completely different, unique, wonderful in their own way. And I said to them, I go, if money wasn't an issue, meaning that mom and dad are multimillionaires, so I'm going to always give you a paycheck, so you don't have to worry about that. What would you spend the rest of your life doing? And whatever they came up with, I said, then if that's your first reaction, then that's the line or the field that you probably want to get into it. Because my daughter's in her second year of nursing school, and because she always was like the healer type of thing. And I said, so okay, that's what you want to do, is that you want to focus on the things that are passionate about you. And I said, look, you can get good at anything, but what are your God-given talents? What are the things that just naturally resonate in your body? Because there's a lot of skills that I've developed over the course of my life that the truth is I learned them for one reason only, so I could be effective in whatever I was doing at that time. But they never sort of like floated my boat, so to speak, if you know what I mean. But I looked at my God-given skills, and for me, it was always in the area of being able to speak with people, coach people, and inspire people. And so it took me a while to understand those things, and be able to utilize them. And so that was the first part. Is I told my kids, I said, if money wasn't an issue, what would you choose to do with the rest of your life? And the second part is, how do we know if that's what we're doing? I think if we get up every day with a sense of, I'm actually contributing to somebody. I'm making a difference in the world. And I caution people to think, look, don't ever think that you have to take somebody from A to Z. Because I think sometimes most people, including myself at times, we doubt ourselves and we doubt our ability to do this. But what I do tell people, I said, look, if you can take somebody just a little bit further than they can take themselves, then you have value in that person's life. You have value to other people. So I said, whatever your dream is, somebody said to me, he says, well, I want to be a professional hockey player I'm a Canadian, of course, or I want to be a professional basketball player. Well, the truth is, physically and that way you might not be able to, but you can become part of the sport. I have a good friend of mine who went to work for the NBA. He was shorter than me. I'm 5'10". He was shorter than me, and he spent a lot of the majority of his life working in the NBA home office. Why? Because he wanted to be a part of that. So I tell folks, I said, find out first and foremost what you would do if money was an issue. Number two, if it when you get up in the morning, you feel like you're making a tangible difference in other people's lives, then I think you're on track. And then you can just expand with that and go with it. And again, shut out the naysayers.
Thank you for that. That's good, especially when you said like what would be that first thing that you would love to do or are passionate to do and to have the skill set to do. And the last thing you said like was like ding 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 for me when you talked about what you're intended to do.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us think that, like, well, can I take someone the full pathway or the full scope? I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a component. Maybe it's just the person that, springs you into action or gives you that sense of hope again. Or maybe that person is in the middle of your journey. You never know how or where that person will impact you. And I think that brings this conversation full circle as well
Yeah.
because when you had your children, you started your family, you're working, you have your career, and here comes this blessing,
Yeah.
your first child, and it's like, huh, you help reshape my career path, my personal professional
Yeah.
path, in the way I view life, the way I view
Yeah.
success, and really the trajectory of what the impact our family is going to have, and also too the impact it's had on others as you're creating ripples,
Yeah.
and helping people in their personal development journey. So I think that is super super powerful. So
Yeah.
before I ask my final question,
Yeah.
please let all of our listeners and our viewers know how they can reach you.
Fantastic. As a result of what Thomas did, the best way for me to share my what I was able to learn and take is I started a success academy. It's called the New Millennial Success Academy, and that's the email address that I'd give, newmillsuccess.com. Um, I apologize. Can you repeat the question? I am
Oh,
50.
sure, sure. It's let all of our listeners and our viewers know how they can find you.
Oh, they can go to my website, www.newmillsuccess.com. You can go to all the social media platforms too and just hit Jerry Hall, New Millennial Success Academy. Because if you do hit Jerry Hall only, you'll get Rupert Murdoch's wife or Mick Jagger's former wife, Jerry Hall. So if you put Jerry Hall, New Millennial Success Academy, you'll be able to find me anywhere across all the platforms.
Perfect. And our last question for today is, what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your reset?
What I learned is that each and every person on this earth came into existence with an actual purpose. There's no junk. We all came in here for a purpose. And I heard something last week from a fellow I grew up with who's a very well-known worldwide doctor now, and he does a lot of coaching, Tom Preston. And he said, he looked at me and he said, he goes, you just got to decide what the thing God loved you into existence for was. And I went, oh my gosh, like it just hit me right between the eyes. And this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I tell people all the time that each and every person, I don't care who you are and where you come from, you were intended to be born. And there's a plan that lives inside of you, like there was for my son, to come out of you and make a difference and inspire other people. And it couldn't have been any truer for me than it was with my son, Thomas.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, it was fantastic. And I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share this. I am so grateful. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Awesome. There is an actual structure to success.
Yeah.
Systems are more important than skills. Who knew my son would become my greatest teacher? You never know how life lessons will come, or better yet, who will teach them to you. Make sure you share this episode. We see so much negativity in the world. Share something good today. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, a reset is always available to you.